Hey there, vinyl lovers, listen up. It's time to take your vinyl experience to the next level with SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop has gorgeous, handcrafted record storage, exquisitely cool turntable furniture, all made with beautiful hardwood out of the USA. Sidetracked Workshop blends style, functionality, and durability. You spend a small fortune on records, don't keep them in a crate. Store and display in style with a console or cabinet from SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Elevate your vinyl setup at SidetrackedWorkshop.com.
And now, on with the show. Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 474 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And ladies and gentlemen, I respect you and your time so much. I'm just going to cut right to the chase. We've got an incredible show today. As a guest, we are welcoming Mr. Lucas Harwood of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. You guys know this band. They are loved by vinyl maniacs all around the world, and we're very lucky to have hosted a few of them, a few of the King Giz fellas lately. Recently, episode 469, we had Cook Craig on. Talked a lot about King Giz vinyl there, and with Lucas, we go in very deep as well. And we talk a little bit about the King Giz history and some of the early and rare vinyl records of their career. But we also talk about the eco-friendly approach that King Gizzard takes on vinyl and materials production. It's quite interesting, and it's really enlightening to what the fellas are looking forward to when it comes to manufacturing records. We also go in deep with Lucas's new project, Heavy Moss. They've got a great new album. It's called Dead Slow. There's 1,000 copies that are available on vinyl over at pdoomrecords.com. They're going pretty quick, so make sure to lock one in relatively soon. It's on streaming services, so you can give it a listen and try before you buy, but I'd predict pretty quick you'll want to get one of those in a shopping cart and on its way to you. But we're going to talk all about Heavy Moss, the creation of Dead Slow, life on touring with King Gizzard. We talk about all sorts of different things. So again, head up there to pdoomrecords.com, grab a copy of the Heavy Moss record, and all sorts of other things from King Gizzard up there too. Just pdoomrecords.com. Go up there and go nuts. And before we get to the interview, I need to ask you each to please follow this podcast in your podcast app. You know, you open up Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and there's always a little plus there next to the podcast. We'll just click that and turn it into a checkbox, or follow us, hit the follow button, and you will get access to hundreds of artist interviews for free, including episode 469 with Cook Craig, also of King Gizzard, also of the Murlocs. That's episode 469 of the Vinyl Guide. We also recently talked to Mac McCaughan of Superchunk and Merge Records on episode 471. Recently, we welcomed author and performer Henry Rollins of Black Flag, Rollins Band, and he's a very opinionated record collector. So we talked in depth with him across two episodes, 461 and 462. And I think you'll also enjoy our conversation with the CEO and COO of Discogs. We talk data and the tech behind the Discogs platform. That's episode 451 of the Vinyl Guide, and literally hundreds more. So you could listen for free through your podcast app anytime with messages from our wonderful sponsors, or you can get the ad-free high-resolution versions of all these podcasts via our Patreon site. That's patreon.com/vinyl guide. So head up there now, help support the show, and you get access to commercial-free and high-resolution versions. Plus, we put extended versions up there sometimes and do some giveaways and other fun stuff. That's patreon.com/vinyl guide. All of them options are appreciated. All right, that's enough from me. Let's talk Heavy Moss, King Gizzard, vinyl, and more with Lucas Harwood.
Hey, man.
Hey.
How you doing? Sorry I'm a bit late.
Typical bass player, always coming in late. And where in the world are you at the moment?
In St. Augustine.
Florida?
Yeah, not far from Jacksonville, I think. I think it's kind of like, I think it's pretty much Jacksonville.
You guys are practically living in the U.S. now. Have you managed to work out the coffee situation?
It's funny. I'm a huge coffee snob, and I don't I don't I don't I don't love coffee over here.
Yeah,
I'm just
very diplomatic.
I just don't like weak filtered coffee. But I don't mind it from when it's from a diner because it's always pretty strong.
But the
Um,
diner has the ambiance. Because
exactly,
I grew up in
exactly.
the States. I moved to Australia years ago.
Oh, right. Where are you? So where are you living?
Sydney. Sydney.
Oh, right.
Right now
Yeah,
I'm traveling. I've made this makeshift recording studio in my mom's house
yeah.
just because I'm doing a bit of traveling. But you get used to the coffee over there, and I would imagine you guys, the mob of you, especially out of Victoria, have some pretty high coffee standards that fail to be met on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, I think I don't know. Everyone just, I think we get like cold brew on the rider. Everyone seems to be satisfied with that. But there's actually like an espresso machine on the bus, and I just make an espresso with that every morning, unless we're like walking distance to like an actual cafe. Because yeah, there's like I'll seek out speciality coffee if it's nearby and go.
Mhm.
I like going for a walk and on my own and just kind of wandering and finding that kind of stuff. I'm probably the one with the highest standards, I think. But
So, hey, wait, this isn't the coffee podcast. This is the vinyl podcast. So, Heavy Moss, Dead Slow,
yeah,
out on P Doom Records. 1,000 black translucent die cut copies, and the cardboard sleeve, which again, I think King Gizzard pioneered this. No shrink wrap. Talk to me a little bit about that. As a vinyl collector, as a record nerd, we like to understand kind of, okay, the conversation, the decision to go to cardboard rather than the shrink wrap.
well, I don't know. For us, as we started doing it quite a while ago, even when we were on Flightless, and it's just like I don't know. I think it was just such an obvious thing to us that wasn't really being talked about. I think so many people in the music industry are progressive in so many ways, but this was just like such an obvious one to us that was you know something that's really wasteful and uses so much plastic when it doesn't need to be. And when we started doing it, everyone, even people in our own camp were like, "Oh, you can't do that. No, like this and that, and blah blah blah." And yeah, like we came up against a lot of opposition, and we're just like, we're doing it. And yeah, it's been really good. I guess the one unfortunate thing is some stores will still then wrap that in wrap the cardboard in there, like they'll shrink wrap it themselves, which is a little bit unfortunate, but you can't control everything. And I think by and large, we're still saving a lot of soft plastic from landfill, which is the idea.
Yeah. I know somewhere out there's a material that you could make edible shrink wrap. I'd like to
Yeah,
see that
well,
come to market.
we did have it was a plant-based one we've done with ATO Records. But it just had a really, I don't know, the feel was just off, if that if that makes sense. And yeah, we had already were doing the cardboard by that point. So um but yeah, we try, yeah, we just, at the end of the day, like a record is a, plastic petroleum based disc that's doesn't really break down for thousands of years. So it's like inherently pretty bad for the environment already. So we're just trying to make everything around that, as eco as possible. But with Heavy Moth and a lot of the P Doom releases, Piper has done this as well. We're working with a new plant called Good Neighbor Records. I forget where it's in Europe somewhere. Um, and yeah, they're fully carbon neutral and they do injection molding, which is a new process. Like I think it's the process has been around for a while, but I don't think people have been able to perfect it. And it's way less energy intensive you don't have to heat the plastic up to a really high temperature, so it's way less energy intensive and
Probably less waste, I would imagine.
less waste because they don't have to cut around the edge because it's injection molded, and they're using a compound that's fully recyclable as well. I mean, hopefully no one's gonna chuck our record in the recycle bin anytime soon, but it can be recycled in a conventional recycling plant, whereas petroleum records are just going to be around here for thousands of years. And they're trying to work on using recycled materials to make records out of, which they're already doing a lot of tests for that. But they haven't quite got the audio quality up to scratch yet. But I think they'll get there. But it's exciting because I don't know. I think it's an industry that just hasn't really bothered, or there hasn't been enough investment as well to see what's possible in that area. So yeah, it's really cool that there are a few plants trying to change it up.
Well, I would imagine there hasn't been as many artists that are as forthright in some of their values in this area.
Yeah, I think it's just something that's not thought about too much with records, and it's kind of like, if you're lucky enough to like have your music pressed to vinyl, like it's an expensive process, and you usually don't have that many options, and you may not have the buying power to try and change the industry. But yeah, we're lucky enough to be able to be selective with who we work with, and with King Gizzard as well, doing pressings that are big enough to kind of justify being selective and being picky.
The band seems to be very eco-conscious, conscious, or whatever it is. Conscious, yeah. And also very socially active, socially aware. You guys will have times where you pull out of festivals or on a bill with something that may be controversial. So it seems to be you're in a position to where you could actually help make some pretty significant changes and have some strong messaging out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's just our values as people. And I think if we don't stand up for things we believe in, we just feel like we're doing ourselves and our fans a disservice. We have a platform that we like to use, and we do. I mean, it's just kind of a no-brainer for us.
Yeah, but you take with great power comes great responsibility, and you seem to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So these records that you have, the Dead Slow, the ones on P Doom that are through this injection molding process, do you know if it's still polyvinyl chloride? Is it still the same material, or is it a different compound?
It's a completely different compound because it's fully recyclable.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head the name of it, but if you look up Good Neighbor Records, they kind of take you through how everything with their production is different. Right. And they're kind of looking for new investment as well to really push forward what they're trying to do, which is really cool.
Right. So this black translucent vinyl that you have, it's made out of several different things and maybe that contributes to why yours and the Pipe Eye record have a different kind of sheen, a little bit of a different look to it.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously with the injection molding, you can't do all the crazy splatter effects and stuff like that because that's done on a manual press. So you can do all different colors, and I think probably like marbled colors as well. But yeah, you're obviously a little bit more limited on that front. But I think we've kind of come full circle with all the crazy different variants and stuff like that. And we just don't prioritize that as much anymore. Obviously, with all the eco stuff in mind, we're definitely happy to not have 10 different variants with all different crazy splatters and prioritize, new methods, less energy intense methods and more eco methods. Yeah, so I actually haven't seen the Heavy Moss record yet. I was yeah, because I'm in the States, I haven't been able to get my hands on one. But from what I hear, we've got them back in Australia, and it looks really cool. It's when it's on the turntable, it just looks like a black record. But then, when you hold it up to the light, it's just got this kind of slightly translucent look, like kind of a little bit brownish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So let's contrast this with something like Willoughby's Beach.
Yeah.
Is that the first time you were on vinyl record?
Willoughby's Beach. Yeah, that would have been the first time we pressed something to vinyl. Yeah, that was a 10-inch. And I think we did it at Pirates Press, which I think they're kind of a middleman for that plant in the Czech Republic. I forget the name of it, but we pressed a lot of our, I mean, not even our early stuff, probably even up to a few years ago, pressed a lot of stuff through them because I think they're one of the biggest plants in the world. And, they just always had the biggest range of crazy colors and splatters and effects that you could do. And they were just known as kind of the kind of A1 in kind of quality. Yeah, so I think even in those early days when I think Willoughby's Beach was it was a 10-inch and it was maybe one of 300.
350.
350. There you go. You know your stuff. You've been on Discogs.
I'm a mad collector. I hold all sorts of almost useless information in my head. So yeah.
No, I like it. I'm a collector as well. I love that stuff, but I don't know our own numbers. Yeah, so I think even I don't know, back then it would have been expensive for us to do that. But we just loved it. We're all collectors. We wanted, a really good quality product. Yeah, there was probably one pressing plant in Melbourne at that time, or maybe it started Zenith, and maybe they had started a few years after we kind of started doing that, and they were kind of just getting up and running. So you just kind of had to go overseas as well. But yeah, it was always really cool. And then, yeah, for us, that was massive. Just, we'd obviously had to scrape together the cash to make that happen. But it was huge for us to put something on wax. It was definitely the first time any of us had done that. So that was pretty momentous. We all grew up inheriting our parents' record collections and, definitely all collectors and love that tangible aspect of art. Yeah, so that was definitely a momentous occasion. You can probably tell me, I think it was just one variant, probably a 350 with
one yellow.
Some kind of, oh yeah, it was just yellow or was some kind of splatter or something.
I think there may have been a repress.
I think the repress was in piss yellow, I think we called it, and that we repressed it on a 12-inch, whereas the original 10-inch is kind of the collector's item. But then the repress, I think, would have been pretty small in numbers too, maybe 1,000. But yeah, and then Willoughby, and then 12 Bar Bruise was 500, and yeah, we just kept selling them out on Bandcamp and selling them at shows. So, we were fortunate enough that we made our money back and we could just keep pressing them.
So how quickly did I think there was a 350 of Willoughby's Beach, there was 500 of 12 Bar Bruise. How quickly would those sell? Did you guys ever worry oh shit, I'm going to get stuck with a bunch of records here? Was there ever that moment?
I don't think so. I don't think I personally thought of it too much. And, Eric was running Flightless and he was definitely the one kind of pushing it. And, he was pretty ambitious with the whole thing and with numbers, and we were just trusting, and we were just like we were just playing so many shows as well. We were just playing shows every weekend. So I can't remember ever having many copies at shows, because from memory they all did go pretty quickly online, and we were just like packing them ourselves in pizza boxes and mailing them out. Like, yeah, those early days was definitely all just through Bandcamp as well.
Did the number of variants ever become problematic? Like you mentioned earlier with Heavy Moss, there's kind of one with this injection molding. There's not as many variants, which is almost a relief in ways.
Hey there, all you record nerds. I want to tell you about bagsunlimited.com. Bagsunlimited.com has a huge selection of vinyl record supplies. Whether you collect LPs, 7-inch singles, 78 shellacs, or anything in between, bagsunlimited.com will sort you out. From polyline sleeves to cardboard record mailers to 7-inch storage boxes and archive quality record sleeves, protect your records of any size and shape at bagsunlimited.com. Whether you have a small personal record collection or you're running a massive record shop, you can grab a small supply or even buy in bulk at bagsunlimited.com. And they've got some really incredible, unique stuff. Bagsunlimited.com even has special size sleeves made especially to protect your box sets, storage boxes and sleeves for cassette tapes, protective supplies for reel-to-reel, and yes, even 8 tracks. Just go to bagsunlimited.com, click on audio supplies, and prepare to be impressed by all the options they have. That's bagsunlimited.com. Oh, and hey, record nerds, don't forget to clean your records with the very best and safest record cleaner, the Groove Washer. Make your records look and sound their very best and store them with confidence using the new Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves. You gotta try this out. It makes a huge difference to the quality of your vinyl experience. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store and accept no substitutes. Or head over to groovewasher.com and use discount code VinylGuide10.
All hail the Groove Washer.
That's groovewasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10.
Did the number of variants ever become problematic? Like you mentioned earlier with Heavy Moss, there's kind of one with this injection molding. There's not as many variants, which is almost a relief in ways.
Not a relief. I mean, with Heavy Moss, I was even apprehensive about doing 1,000. I just didn't want to overcapitalize. But yeah, with all the different variants with Gizzard, I think it kind of felt a little bit wasteful again, and it felt like a little bit too capitalist. Like, we release so many things, and our fans like spend so much money on us, which is, we're incredibly lucky to have that following. And yeah, in some ways it just felt like a little bit exploitative. Like, because, we can see that like there are certain fans that, there might be 8 variants across the globe, and we started doing, particular variants in particular territories. So like, US would get, probably the most, and then Australia might get 2 or 3, and then like Europe might get 2 or 3, and then there would be like a standard black wax recycled one in every territory as well. And we could see the orders, and we could see that some people would order every variant from every territory. And collectors love to do that. Like, no shade on them, but it's also, yeah, it feels exploitative. It's like a little bit wasteful as well with the carbon footprint. Like, having to, we were trying to, get as much as possible, have things produced locally to where the store was, which we were doing that. We would press the EU variants in Europe and the USA ones in USA and Australia in Australia. But then, a lot of people were still ordering outside of their territory anyway. It did help, people start to like order within their territory. It just seemed wasteful and exploitative. So with B741, we just did away with the variants altogether and just had one recycled black wax variant, and I think maybe there's like a standard, and then maybe there's like a deluxe gatefold, like one's maybe embossed or something like that. I can't remember.
Right.
But yeah, again, just kind of shifting our priorities and what we think is important, and and just shifting it back to kind of like the music as well, and the product, and it just being a quality product that everyone can have if they want to, and it doesn't have to be this thing that's like, I've got this variant that there's only 1,000 of and it's sold out, and it's like it comes like competitive almost, like just feels a little bit more egalitarian the way we're doing it now.
What was really amazing about collecting King Gizzard? I'm part of that bunch. I don't look for every variant.
Yeah.
Believe me, if I could, I would. But what was really fun about it is it was interesting. It was a band you believed in, a band whose values were similar or same as mine and as others. Great music, and it was prolific. So every 3 months or so, maybe 6 months, maybe 2 months, depending on the year, there was something else coming out and something else to chase and have that conversation, especially online. So
Yeah.
it ticks so many boxes for collectors. And
Definitely.
then the posters. So you've also got the
Yeah.
show posters. So
Yeah, for sure.
that seemed to be one of the attractors of a lot of people to kind of peep into the Gizverse.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. And I do think that kind of collector kind of mania has like shifted over to the posters a bit now. And we're just trying to do the same thing with that and just like make it fair, because we used to do pretty small numbers. Like when we first started doing, I think in 2019, we first started doing a unique poster for every show that started in the US. And I think we did 100 copies every night, and they sold out pretty quickly. And even the next tour after that, I think, wasn't until 2022 because of COVID. And maybe we bumped them up to 200. Maybe a big show would be 300 or 400. But it just created this thing where people were lining up like 12 hours before doors. And I was just like, that's insane. Like I feel bad for these people. So now we kind of do numbers that it just means that there isn't that, people definitely still line up early. But it's like you don't have to do that to get one now. You don't have to be a little bit insane to get one. We don't sell out every night, but then we put them online, so people outside of the show can have access to them as well.
It becomes a little bit of a burden as a fan sometimes to.
Well, exactly. That's what we don't want.
Yeah. Because then there's all this chatter about, does this festival hall in Oklahoma, do they allow cardboard tubes?
Yeah.
Do they allow this?
Yeah.
You spend your whole night kind of protecting this thing rather than being in the show.
Yeah. Totally. And there are still fans who line up hours beforehand, and you see them with their I don't know what you call them, but I guess like architects use them. It's like a plastic tube with a strap that I guess people usually use for blueprints. But yeah, some of them are super organized. You line up early, the doors open, and they go straight to the merch desk, get their poster, put it in their protective tube, and then they can go down to the front of the fence and they wait, watch the support, and wait hours to be at the front for our set, which is it's incredible, the level of dedication that some of the fans have. We're very, very lucky, fortunate, and very grateful for that.
Yeah. I'm really curious about the early days, especially when you guys were in university. You went to a music program. What was that? What was that program where several of you guys were in the same course.
Yeah, yeah. It was a Bachelor of Arts in majoring in music industry. It was kind of a bachelor degree in its infancy. Um, and it was just a really broad spectrum kind of like, yeah, music/music industry degree. Um, yeah, and it was really cool because you could kind of dip your toes in like everything. There was kind of production and recording, but you also could select electives just from the whole arts program at RMIT. So, I did some like cultural studies and like film studies and journalism and stuff like that as well. Um, but yeah, I think the biggest thing that we all kind of agree that we got out of that was that like the two halves of the band met there at uni, and there was a performance course. I think it was just called like music performance, and yeah, basically every week or every couple of weeks we would just get to, well, yeah, I think maybe there was a performance every 2 or 3 weeks, but the rest of the time you would just spend in a studio. You would get into groups and you would just put together a 15-minute performance. Um, and then, yeah, you would play in front of the class. So, yeah, and you were just like critiqued by the teacher and the students, and it just kind of became this conversation about what people liked and what you could improve on or what you could do different next time. And it was just a really good environment for like us to grow as a live band. And yeah, in that course, like there was definitely lots of different iterations of like what Gizzard is now, because you could play with people within the course, but then like Stu and Eric and Joe were the year above me, so like I would go and like play in their performance ensembles as well, and vice versa. And then them kind of help me out in mine. Yeah. So it was like it was you could kind of just do whatever you wanted, and it was just really cool because it was just a format where we could just try shit out and see what worked. Because it wasn't like a gig where there was like, you had to get a 40-minute set together.
Right.
It was kind of less pressure. It was just like 15 minutes. Yeah, it was just like a stage to try stuff out.
It sounds like that is so key to the germination of the band, and
yeah, definitely
allowed you guys to really accelerate and learn a lot of lessons in just a dense period of time.
Exactly. Like I said, we were playing every weekend. We just played every show we could. And we were all in other bands, and it was kind of this band that we wanted to be like the antithesis of all the other bands we were in. Like it was just like kind of like a fun party band, but then it just kind of snowballed. We just wanted something that wasn't as serious, and it was just like really easy. And people came in the early days. It was like a lineup in flux. It just people came in and out. And yeah, I guess it snowballed, and we started getting some bigger gigs, and yeah, we just eventually firmed up the lineup. I guess with the people who just kept coming back.
Yeah, because everyone was learning kind of at the same time, so you were all aligned in terms of some of these music industry practices. Everyone kind of learned those lessons together. Did you guys finish the course?
Yeah, all of us finished, so we've all got bachelor degrees somehow. Yeah, no, it was cool. I really enjoyed it, and like we all started it straight out of high school, and most of us lived like the course was in Melbourne. RMIT's like Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. it was in the city. Like I grew up in Geelong, like an hour out of the city. Most of the guys grew up a little bit further from where I was, like down the surf coast, little bit. I mean, yeah, you're probably familiar with the geography. Um, Kaz and Eric came from Denny, which was like a really country kind of like farming place, like 4 hours from the city. And Joe lived kind of in the outer burbs of Melbourne, so it was just like, we would all finished high school, all like moved to the city, all in at like 19, 20, and just like that formative period in your life where you just like we were just going head first into this thing without doing anything else. So that that's the other thing as well. You're just like young, completely untethered, and you can just sink your teeth into something without
You got a lot of energy.
thinking about anything else. You got a lot of energy.
So this course, is this where the bands like the Houses and Sambro's Automobile, is that where those folk bands formed, or was that did they form after? Edward?
No, they all already existed. The Houses, Sambros, Stu was in El Mac and Jack. Joe and Eric were in Goodnight Owl. Cavs joined in the Houses kind of like just before that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we were all in these other bands, and Gizzard, like kind of formed at university, like all these other bands. We were trying to kind of like make it in Melbourne as well, but then we started Gizzard as well, and we were all playing each other's gigs, like on each other's lineups, kind of like supporting each other in that way.
It sounds like Eric always had kind of a pull towards manufacturing and records and that sort of kind of business-minded affair. Yeah, is that
Definitely?
okay? All right.
Yeah. No, he was definitely business-minded, and he was definitely pushing it along. I mean, we were all pushing it along in our own ways, but he was in those early days. He was definitely the only one thinking about that kind of stuff, and like thinking about the bigger picture.
Yeah. Did it surprise the band when he wanted to spend more time with Flightless?
No, I think it made sense. He was just wearing so many hats, and it was just becoming untenable. To just the stress of that, and that, like being on tour, and trying to be present in a band as well, which was just becoming its own thing. It just was becoming, and still is now, this thing that when on tour now, like you have to devote half your day to kind of going through songs, and then 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours kind of sound checking, and we're running songs that we haven't played in like a few months because we're like cycling through so many, and the production's just bigger, whereas in those early days you just kind of like rocked up at the gig, and it was like, what are we playing?
Yeah.
Whereas I think it's a bit more involved now and requires more time, which is a good thing as well, because it makes tour like a stimulating experience. I think for some musicians, just playing the same set every night, like sometimes kind of just going through the motions, it can become a bit maddening. And it did for us in those early days, because we were playing the same set every night, and that's why we started to change it up.
Well, you had maybe 24 songs. Now you have several hundred, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think maybe there's 300 or something, like recorded songs, and we have almost 200 in a spreadsheet of like songs that we've ever played live. But there's probably a good portion of those that we couldn't just like take off the rack and play. A lot of them would require some work. There's probably like maybe 130 that are like that, that we can take off the rack without having to familiarize ourselves with them too much. Yeah, I think that's all that you can kind of hold in your memory without revising.
How far in advance do you know before you listed down to play a deep cut in a live set?
Usually on the day.
Okay, playlists are made
Yeah,
on the day.
yeah, yeah. And like towards the end of the tour, like where we're at now, like a set list last night was written half an hour before we played because we've cycled through so many of those songs that I mentioned now that it doesn't require as much thought now. I guess by the end of the tour we're kind of gig fit, but definitely early in the tour it's like usually we'll have written the set list for maybe the first three shows before we leave, before we get on the plane, because we're rehearsing for the few weeks leading up to it. So yeah, we're definitely pretty organized in that sense, and especially for those early shows, we all get really nervous, especially if we haven't played, in a few months. Like we like to, if you feel prepared, like you feel less nervous. So yeah, we yeah, I guess it goes like two ends of the spectrum. Sometimes we're really really organized, but then towards the end of the tour, and it's kind of fun and exciting when you can just be like, we're just shooting the shit in the green room, and it's like, oh, why don't we play this song today? We haven't played that in a while, and it keeps us on our toes, keeps us stimulated, and keeps us like thinking as musicians, which is what you want up there. You want to be thinking, you want to be working. As soon as you like start reverting to muscle memory, that's when you start to get bored. And like, yeah, you don't want to be bored up there. We're just having fun, So well, that's what you want.
When you do a set that's like one of the 3-hour sets, I think you've done those at Red Rocks and Hollywood Bowl and a few other select places. Are those inherently more difficult, or is it? Do you fall into that natural, almost like a runner's high? Do you kind of slip into that mode?
Hey there, audiophiles. If you're seeking stylish furniture to showcase your stereo and record collection, well, look no further than SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop designs extraordinarily elegant record cabinets and consoles that add sophistication and panache to your music hobby. Handcrafted in the good old USA in the vinyl-loving city of Portland, Oregon, Sidetracked Workshop's designs are a music lover's dream. Made with real walnut veneered wood and brass accents, these gorgeous designs add class and taste to the record room and ship fully assembled and ready to enjoy. Just check out the designs for yourself at SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Look, you spend thousands of dollars on records. Don't keep them in a crate, and don't risk your records on those feeble wooden pegs from IKEA. Your music deserves the dignity of Sidetracked Workshop. That's SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Elegant solutions for the vinyl lifestyle.
When you do a set that's like one of the 3-hour sets, I think you've done those at Red Rocks and Hollywood Bowl and a few other select places. Are those inherently more difficult, or is it? Do you fall into that natural, almost like a runner's high? Do you kind of slip into that mode?
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it doesn't hit. I think it's just like with any set. Sometimes, you try to write a set that flows really well, and sometimes, yeah, it just hits, and you definitely get in that zone where it just feels incredible. And sometimes not. It's definitely pretty rare. Sometimes it just doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
It can be the flow or just the crowd, or if you make a few mistakes, like sometimes you can really get in your head and that just kind of snowballs. But yeah, it just depends. Like there's definitely a much higher sense of anticipation for for those 3 hour shows. And yeah, like I think, a regular show for us now is over 2 hours, just like a regular set, like sometimes 2 hours, 15 minutes, sometimes even 2.5. So yeah, I don't know. We have been talking about whether the like marathon thing should even be a thing anymore, because like our regular show is kind of slowly pushing towards that length anyway. And if that just becomes the thing, then it takes away the anticipation of a show being special or different. Even though, we still put everything into every show, it just like, that another layer of expectation can create another layer of apprehension for us.
Yeah, it's like Bruce Springsteen. I mean, if you go see a Bruce Springsteen concert, he's going to be up there 4 hours or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just depends on the city as well, because like, when we go to a city, we don't repeat any songs from the last time we were there. And then we also don't repeat any songs from the night before, wherever we were. So like we played like a 3 hour set in Austin recently, and the last time we were in Austin, we played 2 shows. So that kind of it made the set a bit harder to write because there was less to choose from.
So you guys are organized the way, if you're playing in Orlando, that in the last few sets you did, is that something that the band tracks pretty clearly, or do you also depend a lot on fan generated information?
Well, there is a fan site that tracks all that and gets really deep on the stats, which is, people have pointed that out to us, and it's really interesting to read. But it's funny actually. We did an interview with setlists.fm recently in LA, and it was an interview basically about all these like stats they had on our set list, which was really cool. But yeah, we look up on Setlist FM every day to see what we've played in the city we're in, just the last time. Yeah, I guess that's all fan submitted anyway. So I guess it is kind of like a fan site. But then they do all the deep kind of statistical analysis after the fans have inputted that information.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You can see how many shows we've ever played, like how many countries we've played in, like what songs and what albums we play the most. It's cool.
Well, it must be the Dripping Tap must be top of the list the last several years.
I think it's like most ever. I think it's, I can't remember.
Cellophane,
like we literally looked this up. This is what we did in that set list interview, but I'm pretty sure it's Nonagon, like a Nonagon song, like maybe Gamma Knife or People Vultures or something like that.
Is there a celebrity or well-known personality that is a King Gizzard fan that really surprised you in the band?
Let me think. There's definitely a few. Eric Andre.
Oh, okay.
Is one. He's an old friend of our manager's, and he's from Florida originally, actually. Yeah, we've met him a few times. Really extremely lovely guy. I was very kind of surprised when I first met him, just like how normal he was. Like you just kind of, I don't know, you just think something's going to happen when he's around, like he's going to prank you or something.
He's always thinking about it. He probably had it in the back of his mind, I would imagine.
Yeah. There's definitely been a few people we've met over the years. I just can't.
Yeah.
I'm not good when I'm put on the spot. I can't think of anything else anyone else right now.
Do you remember the last time you were starstruck?
Yeah, we were at a festival in I think it was Primavera in Bilbao, and David Byrne was doing America's Utopia. American Utopia.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And yeah, it is. It really is. And yeah, he was in catering when we were, and he was just sitting on a long table with his band, and I was just like in line, at the buffet, and he cut in front of me and got some cold cuts. he was he was in his in his grey suit, bare feet, just cut in front of me, and I was just like, I don't know. He probably thought, like, with the face that I pulled, that I was annoyed at him because he was like cutting in line, but I was just completely starstruck. But yeah, like obviously a massive Talking Heads fans, and American Utopia is incredible. And yeah, that was one person that you like see in the flesh, and it's just like it's like it doesn't feel real.
And he cut in front of you to get some cold cuts. So
Yeah. I thought I thought he was. I guess I assumed maybe he was vegan or something. But
So Heavy Moss, Dead Slow, the album. Well, by the time this airs, the album is out.
Yeah.
Has this project been long in the making? I know there's a few other songs, Summer and Morning Milk. Were those kind of proof of concepts to then launch an album?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, like I guess Sam and I started jamming in like 2022. I think it was kind of like October 2022. It was just the two of us, just jamming my songs, my kind of new songs. Sam and I had been in a band together, like over 10 years ago. It was called Atolls. And yeah, it was kind of one of those bands I forgot to mention earlier that, were kind of around like when Gizzard was forming. It was a bit more kind of like 90s grunge, kind of like Dinosaur Jr.-esque. Like I was playing guitar, like lots of fuzz and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, since then I kind of gravitated to writing a lot more on keys and piano. Yeah, so I wanted to explore that and kind of just tease out those songs like with collaborators. Yeah, so Sam and I recorded one of the songs, Distant Boy, before Kyle came on board. And yeah, Kyle and Sam worked together. Sam had known him for a few years, and we kind of, I guess, kind of like did a weird like audition by like kind of remote audition. Like Kyle did some overdubs on that track before I had met him, and heard the overdubs. I was like, well, yeah, this guy can obviously play. And then we met up in person and had a jam, and it just like, it just clicked instantly. Yeah, I was probably more like apprehensive at that stage about just like, getting on with someone new, like as a person, because I think, I knew that he could play, but I think as you get older, you realize that that's as important, if not more important, than being in a band with someone that you click and that you get on well. And it just like clicked instantly, which was amazing. And we were playing. Yeah, we recorded one of his songs, Summer, and yeah, it was just kind of ambling along. Wasn't too serious, because everyone has other jobs. They've all got full-time jobs, so it was just this thing that we kind of got together and did when we could. And yeah, it just became quickly obvious that we needed a bassist, and I knew Beck. I had just like seen her around, like she was from the Surf Coast originally as well, and kind of had connections to kind of a lot of people I knew through music and through Australian football as well, interestingly. And yeah, I weirdly just like kept running into her at airports because she'd either be traveling for footy or for music. And and I think, we just always ran into each other and chatted about music and what we were doing and stuff like that. And she's a gun like session guitarist. Like she had a gig last night at the Sydney Mire in Melbourne, which is like a 10,000 capacity arena, where she got the call up on the day, and like she like sent us a photo like in the
Yeah.
Heavy Moss like WhatsApp, like of her set list and like her notes that she'd written on the set list, like literally just like listened to like 8 songs that day and just learned them. So she's like
A
a different
gun.
breed of musician in that way, an absolute session gun on guitar. But we asked her to play bass in Heavy Moth, and yeah, she was pumped too. I think because she comes from that session world, I think she was excited to be in a band that was like collaborative and writing, and it's different, very different to most of the work she does, where she's a hired gun, whereas this is a band that she's more involved in, and it's more collaborative. um and yeah, and I mean, yeah, when she got involved, I think we had 3 songs and we just sent them to her. And then, being the hired gun that she is, like when we jammed with her the first time, she just like nailed it note for note. Yeah. So that was just like a no-brainer. And again, I knew Beck, but the other guys had never met her. But it's just instantly kind of clicked. But yeah, anyway, when we were doing that, we kind of didn't have a goal. We were kind of getting a set together, kind of recording, but we didn't have a direction, I guess. But then when Gizzard started P Doom, and the kind of idea was that we release King Gizzard records, but then all King Gizzard side projects. Yeah, I guess the opportunity came up for an album to be funded, and yeah, we were just like, yep, let's go for it. And yeah, and I guess that made us make the time to like make an album. Whereas like if that didn't happen, I think we may have just been like ambling along a little bit, like directionless, like maybe trying to get a set together for like a live show. I mean, I think we would have recorded an album eventually, maybe not quite as fast, because when the opportunity came, that just kind of like galvanized the group to be like, yep, we're making an album, like this is what we're doing. Yeah, so that kind of made us just kick into gear and get it done.
It would seem, and again, just kind of reading this from the outside, obviously, King Gizzard seems to be perhaps loosening up, maybe not as intense as it was in the past few years, which may allow the freedom for yourself or Cook with Pipe Eye to be able to kind of explore some other things. It's not, it allows you a little bit more time, perhaps a little bit more opportunity to do some of these non-Giz activities. Is that kind of fair? Am I reading that right?
Yeah. That's probably fair. Like, we're definitely not in the studio like we were in 2017. Obviously that year was like intense. But we still, like when we're at home, I guess after this tour, we've got almost 6 months off touring, and yeah, I mean, I'm going on a family holiday after this tour, but like the guys will definitely get back in the studio before the end of the year, and then we'll probably have Christmas and like the first few weeks of the year off. But yeah, I think it'll get to the point where everyone will want to get back in the studio. Like, yeah, definitely not like we were maybe 3 to 5 years ago, but we still treat it like a job, and try to go into the studio as much as possible. I mean, Stu especially, I think, is almost in there every day. And like, if he's not specifically working on an album, then he'll be writing for the next one, or kind of we've been putting this electronic table together for touring, and that's definitely, I think, taking up a lot of bandwidth for all of us at the moment. And just like touring in general, like I think it's such a bigger production now. I think that kind of takes up a little bit more mental capacity than it used to. But yeah, I think maybe there's a little bit more time for these side projects now. But yeah, I think I think we all just acknowledge that it's important to have other things on the go as well, and you just kind of make the time for those things, even though we're all very busy all the time. But
It must
it's good to be, we like being busy. Yeah.
it must be interesting returning home, because I've been out traveling and on the road for quite some time, and when I get back home, there's just little things like, oh, now I have to make my bed, or now I have to do these things that were already done in a hotel or something like that. So re-entry.
I oddly like kind of miss those things on tour. My wife will probably balk at me at saying this, but like I don't know, I weirdly like doing laundry on tour and like neatly folding all my clothes. It kind of I don't know. It's just like I definitely used to struggle coming off tour and just completely changing gear and going back into domestic life, because when I'm at home, I'm probably split my time from like half being a stay-at-home dad and half, either working from home in my home studio or commuting to the studio in Melbourne and working with the guys. And yeah, like we've got 3 kids, so when I get home, it's just like straight into domestic duties. But I definitely used to struggle when we just had one, and she was at school, and I would come home, and I didn't have after I'd quit my day job, I'd kind of be like twiddling my thumbs sometimes. But now there's just so much to do. It's just like there's not enough time in the day,
Yeah. Are you thinking about doing any live versions of Heavy Moss, or is this studio only for the moment? Oh, okay.
No, definitely. We're definitely a little bit torn between like putting time into like making a live set and making a new album. But we've booked a show for next year that will be announced really soon. And yeah, I hope that's just going to like put us into gear now that we have that deadline.
Yeah.
But I am confident that it won't take long to like get our set together, that it won't take too much rehearsal. And then we really want to focus on recording another album. Hopefully this time around something that's even a little bit more collaborative. Dead Slow was kind of, again, once we had the opportunity to make an album, we kind of, we each, Kyle, myself, and Sam, even has one song that he wrote in the album. We each had these songs, that we kind of wrote demos of, and we were like, this is the song, these are the parts. Got together, recorded, the skeleton or the bed of each song, and then we went away, to our respective home studios and did the overdubs on our own. I guess that was just like a very time efficient way to do it when time was limited. But I guess the songs were kind of arranged collaboratively, but then a lot of work was done individually before and after them. But the next one, we definitely want to like write, not just arrange, but like write songs collaboratively all together in a room, which will take a bit more time, I think. But yeah, we just want to make that time and make it worth it, because yeah, I think the strength of the band is like us gelling as musicians. So we want to really tap into that for the next one.
Wow. Well, it's a beautiful record.
Thank you. Yeah, we're super, super proud of it, and really excited that it's out in the world.
Yeah, and it's nice to know that there's a universe where you're kind of pushing out and seeing this is not a one-off, but a longer-term thing, so we can see the band evolve over time.
Oh no, definitely. Yeah, it might take another couple of years for us to finish another album, but we're definitely going to keep writing and just try to keep making time for it. So yeah,
excellent.
Keep your eyes and ears out.
Will do. Now, we didn't even talk about record collections or being a record nerd or anything, but I know you have to get to sound check. So hopefully, Lucas, we could have you back on the show. Maybe even when you're in Melbourne in front of your record collection, and we could do a proper nerd session.
Yeah, definitely. I've probably got like 500 records, not heaps. I definitely I used to buy a lot more than I used to. That when I used to be a thing on tour that a lot of us would just go to record stores, and I used to buy a lot without knowing what it was, just by like looking at the cover or reading some of the liner notes. But it's not that I've fallen out of love with it. I don't know, just like different priorities, I guess.
Well, you can't listen to them on the road either, so
exactly.
Part of the magic is going to the record store, finding something, and then going home and putting it on and kind of having that happen within a day or so. But if you're on a tour bus, you're not going to have a hi-fi system necessarily.
Yeah. It's hard. I think I got over carrying them around as well and traveling with them. And we each used to come home with like a tote bag full of records, and it's kind of a stress to travel with them and try to make sure they don't get damaged. But I've still got a like decent record collection, but none that'd be great to go through them.
Excellent.
Next time.
All right. Well, cool. Well, we look forward to having you back on the Australian shores soon. Hopefully Heavy Moss. I'm assuming that gig's going to be in the Victoria area, but hopefully you guys make your way up the coast a bit.
Maybe, this one's just in Melbourne. It'll be announced soon. I can't say it right now, but definitely want to get around as much as we can. But we'll see. Everyone's got other commitments. We're definitely not going to be going on an overseas tour anytime soon, but maybe one day.
All right, Lucas. Well, I'll let you go, man. Thanks again for spending time with us. And again, just reminding folks, Heavy Moss Dead Slow is available now. Order your vinyl copy at pdoomrecords.com. It's on streaming as well if you want to give it a go. It really is a beautiful album, and I look forward to having my black translucent copy in my hands shortly. So again, Lucas, take care. Travel safe, mate.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
There he is. Very good bloke. All the King Gizzard guys are so laid back, so cool, man. And we've now had 3 of them on the show. 3 of the 6 current members. We had Ambrose, Kenny Smith, a couple years ago, and recently, like I said, Cook Craig, and now Mr. Lucas Harwood. So we're making our way all around the Gizverse, or the Giz fellas. Again, Heavy Moss is available, pdoomrecords.com, and grab it before it's gone. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Appreciate everyone who's sharing these episodes on social media, putting them in Reddit forums or Facebook groups, sharing them on their threads or wherever else they share. That is hugely appreciated. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.